Hi everyone. Just to keep in touch and to um, put a video in, really, to say I'm still alive. Housework, I'm smoking my cob, one of my cob pipes, and I'm smoking the last of my plum pudding. I've got some shout outs that I want to do. The first one's Pipe Brazil. He's an amazing guy, sort of full of life, full of vigour and of Latin American fire. Well worth a visit, and I'll put his name down in the dustbin. Maritime Piper, someone that I've grown to respect and like immensely from the videos that I've seen, and who started off a discussion which has gone, I think, very, very well, and very, we've all been very nice to each other, I think, which is good. Mod Piper, again, someone who deserves subs if you haven't been to see him. Again, his videos are well worth seeing. And Ben the Bagpiper, who's just reached his 100 subs and is starting his giveaway. If you haven't subbed to him, then go and take a look, and again, give him a sub if you haven't. But show all of them a bit of love. And the other person I want to mention is BeerBeard, who's had some disturbing news. And I just want to publicly assure him of my love and my deep respect for him. I admire him immensely, and I just love his videos, as I'm sure the majority of us do. But just show him some love at the moment. And I hope he won't mind me mentioning online. I don't think he will, because he's already mentioned it in the video. I was tempted to say, do you want me to look after your tobacco for a while, or your pipes, but I thought I'd better not. It's in bad taste. But I'm sure he'll take that in the way it was meant. An update on the request that I asked for thoughts. Your thoughts and prayers. This has turned out to be a real nasty problem for me. I told you that the guy, Stephen, who I called Stephen, had been assaulted and really badly treated and was in a mess with his nerves and he is in a mess with his nerves and with the effects of as he sees it, of what happened. But he asked me to go into the place where we hold the writers' group to ensure that the guy who was there has been dismissed and thrown off the site. And when I went in, it was clear that things were not as I'd thought. I had a word with the managers, and it turns out that the assault was not an assault, that Stephen had just gone up like a rocket, and that they were trying to calm him down, and the more they tried to calm him down, the worse it got, and so on. But now I'm stuck in the middle. I've had to assure the staff that I will vouch for him, and we've had to work out a way of getting him into the building not through the main entrance because too many people are upset. So it entails that I meet him in the car park, I walk him round the back of the building and straight into the classroom. And he's not allowed to leave the classroom without me. And he's not allowed to go anywhere else in the building except to the toilet. It's a real sad case on all sides. And obviously I wasn't there. I don't know what went on. But I feel sorry for everybody involved. So if you could remember me especially as I try and hold this together for both sides. The management have been very grateful that I've been prepared to do what am doing, because that prevents them from having to ban Stephen from the site altogether. Anyway, that's that. Apart from that, I'm feeling very happy and at peace with myself. And I hope you've all had a happy Thanksgiving. I've tried to remember you all in my thoughts and have been giving thanks for some of the things that I, thinking about some of the things that I can give thanks for. Today I was reminded by a post of some of the risks we take as children. How we should apply for the Darwin Awards for the way that we try and find extinction of life. And I began to think of one or two things in my childhood that had nearly ended up in the worst way possible. And I hope you don't take what I'm saying the wrong way at one point. I'll go into that now, the first time that I nearly lost it all. Two of the girls from the farm, the pigman's daughters. The pigman's wife came down to spend the afternoon with Mum, and she brought her daughters down. So I decided to take them on the marches, where I had my den in a deserted windmill. To get there, we had to cross several dikes, and one of the dikes is what we call a bottomless dike. They tried to put some piles in to make a more safe crossing across, and the piles didn't find the bottom. They just kept going down. Obviously there's a bottom there, but it's one of those dikes where the mud, if you fall in, you just go straight down in the mud. Thick, dirty, slushy mud. Anyway, we went to the windmill and I opened up my doctor's surgery and my medical practice, as was my wont, and we had a good game of doctors and nurses. That was in the days when such things weren't considered abusive, and I'm sorry if anybody thinks that what we did was wrong, but it wasn't just my fault. Anyway, on the way home, we had to cross this bottomless dike, and I wanted to help the girls across because they were frightened. So I stood in the middle of the log that we crossed on, held their hands and sort of worked them round me. Only the second girl across, as she was getting off the log, kicked me in. and I managed to sort of flip my arm round the logs, which was lucky. But I was in up to my chest, and I managed to crawl along, hold onto the log and get to the side, and to haul myself out. Now, this mud must have been there for eternity because it stank, really stank. Anyway, we walked home, and by the time I was getting home, it was getting quite dry, was this mud and stuff, quite difficult to walk because it was beginning to set, but the smell wouldn't go away. And the two girls walked into the house and I followed them in. My mother had her back to me, but the pigman's wife saw me and screamed. And she asked the girls what we'd been doing. And they told her. So I nearly lost my life for the second time that afternoon, with Mother going up like a rocket and wait till your dad comes home and all that kind of thing. And, having to get undressed outside and be sloshed down with buckets of water before she'd allow me into her clean home. So that was one time. And when Dad came home, of course, I got the belt buckle first, which wasn't pleasant. Another time was on a building site in the village. The builders had been leaving their sites sort of accessible to the school kids, and we were at primary school. We weren't that old, we were about coming up to 8 or 9, I think. And for some reason, the builders weren't working for a while. So we built a den in the bricks, built walls with the bricks. Built a fort. Which I was part of the girls' army. I knew where I was best off. So we defended the fort against the other army who were trying to get in. Unfortunately, the way they wanted to come in was with a battering ram. So they hit the outside wall, and all 4 walls collapsed inwards, burying us just about. But by the time they'd pulled the bricks off us, we were just a bit cut and bruised, and that was all. So that was sort of number 2, sort of trying to end my life. Number 3, the most really lucky one, was in the farm barn. We had a corn silo, which was open at the top, and you could sort of get up the steps, and there was a rim round, and then the corn inside. And we were throwing this ball around, and it ended up in the silo, slap bang in the middle. So one of the lads said, "Oh, you go and get it to me," and I sort of climbed up, leapt into the middle of the corn silo, held onto the ball as I was gradually sinking. I was really lucky, because one of the farm workers just happened to come into the barn when he saw me leaping off the top, and he rushed up the stairs and sort of threw his jacket, and I grabbed it, and he pulled me to safety. From then on, Dad banned me from the farm for a while. But that was, number 3. I won't tell you what Dad called me or what he said about my common sense, but it wasn't that good. He didn't seem to think his son had the intelligence that he should have. But being brought up with a dad who worked on a farm was quite good, because on the holidays I spent my time either on the farm or on the marshes, where we had a cattle shed, and the cows were taken down there in summer and they were milked in this shed. And I'd said that I'd built a den in the windmill, which I had. The windmill was an old windmill to drain the water from the flooded land out into the river, the Riviera, which all the boats on the Broads came, the pleasure boats and all that kind of thing. So it was quite a deep drop in the where the floor had collapsed in. But to get up to my den, I used to walk across a beam. And one day as I was crossing it, the beam fell in just as I got to the other side, which I thought, now what am I going to do? But I managed to walk round the outside, just on this sort of, where the beams were, there were like bricks that had held them. And I just was able to step on those and lay flat against the wall as I could, because there weren't any handholds, and virtually claw my way round without falling backwards down the hole. Had I done that, nobody would have known I was there. And I doubt whether I'd have ever been found until, well, I don't know, because the mill's still there. But it's funny how as children, dangerous things happen, and yet so often we get away with it, or got away with it. One of the local lads at school, his father took him shooting on the marshes, wildfowling. And the lad had climbed through the barbed wire that they were going through, these sort of strips of barbed wire. And his dad did the unforgivable thing. He didn't break the shotgun as he was going through the barbed wire. And as he went through, of course, both triggers caught on the barbed wire, and his son got both barrels in the back of his legs. But so lucky was he that he could still, well, he had to be taken to hospital, and they did what they had to do to sort of patch him up as much as they could. But he was still able to walk after he came out of hospital. But whilst he was sat at school, over the next few months, you'd find him picking the back of his legs and little pellets coming out, and he stored them on his desk. He had like where you put the pens, and he had this row of pellets that he'd got out of the back of his legs. So he was very lucky. The time I was very lucky was when one of my playmates found his dad's poacher's gun. Now this was a walking stick that you could pull the walking stick off, the head off, and then there was a little screw thing in the head that you could take out, screw it into the bottom where it made a trigger, and you put the bullets into the end of the walking stick, put the walking stick handle in a different way so that you could hold it and pull the trigger. We decided that we didn't really want to have live cartridges in. So what we thought was best to do would be to open the end and take all the balls out. But some of them seemed to get stuck. So my friend, sort of leaning over the cartridge, was scraping around with a knife trying to get the loose ball out, when of course the bloody thing went off because he hit the charge. And the ball made a hole in the ceiling, but it missed him by I don't know how much. I think he must have just been in the right position. I didn't get belted for that one until about a week later. But he did. His dad sort of really laid into him. But then happened to mention it down at the pub. And my dad was there. So that was another belting. But I survived. The only time I really, really shook my dad was when I was at the little school in the village. And we had the teacher there, Miss Ward, and she was married to a photographer who worked from home. And I really loved Miss Ward. She was a lovely teacher. And I got back home and one night said to Dad, "Dad, I really love Miss Ward. She's lovely." And he said, "Dear?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well," he said, "so do I. I wouldn't mind spending the night with her." And my mum said, "Don't be so stupid." So the son and heir, wanting to do the best for his dad, next day at school said, "Miss Ward, my dad said he'd like to spend the night with you." And she must have told Mr. Ward at coffee time, because he came in and, I mean, he was joking, I think, but he sort of tapped me on the shoulder at the desk. And he said, "Will you give your daddy a message?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Tell your daddy if he comes down to spend the night with my wife, he'll go back quicker than he came down. For 3 or 4 weeks, Dad daren't go down into the village, just in case." I don't think he ever forgave me for that one. But I'm going to end there. I just really wanted to do those shout-outs and keep in touch, because I feel I hadn't posted for a while. But if you could remember me on a Thursday, because that's when I've sort of got to keep things going well, and looking after things, and it's not easy. But that's life.